You're listening to the Meet the Farmers podcast with me, your host, Ben Eagle. Please remember to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening.
Finally, we will reform agricultural property relief and business property relief. From April 2026, the first £1 million of combined business and agricultural assets will continue to attract no inheritance tax at all. But for assets over £1 million, inheritance tax will apply with a 50% relief at an effective rate of 20%. This will ensure that we continue to protect small family farms and with three quarters of claims unaffected by these changes.
It's not often a government budget is defined by a measure targeting agriculture, but arguably Rachel Reeves' budget will go down in history as one of the most impactful to ever take place on the industry, headlined by her decision to reform agricultural and business property reliefs. I'm Ben Eagle, and this Meet the Farmers podcast episode is about the reaction that has taken place in farming circles since the budget. It's not about the details of the new situation. That's for the accountants and land agents to advise on, and I want to underline to everyone how important it is to get advice, be rational, calm-headed and as proactive as you can with planning next steps. But here we'll begin to explore the reaction. And I don't believe that this will be the last time we reflect on this topic on Meet the Farmers, because at its heart, I don't believe that the reaction is just about what was contained in Rachel Reeves' speech. For many in the farming community, feelings go much deeper than APR, and this sense has been reflected both in the interviews and conversations I've been having with farmers and others in the industry, and in what has been written and broadcast. What has been happening in recent weeks, I believe, is as much reaction to the relationship between politicians and farmers as the actual politics. Whilst many farmers might traditionally vote for the Conservative Party, there was a hope with the incoming Labour government that farming would be supported, especially after a few years of appearances by Keir Starmer at the NFU's conference and his reassurance that the Labour Party cared about farmers and rural Britain.
But if we face facts, I think all too often, when I reflect on the Labour Party, we've come across as the party of urban Britain, only mentioning the countryside to say what we can't do, not what we can do. So if I only get one message across today, let it be this. This is a different Labour Party. I won't bore you with all the details, but over the last 3 years since I've been leader, I've had an intense focus on changing our party. And we've changed that party from top to bottom. A party that's fit to serve, that's compassionate and competent, that aspires to govern for every corner of our country. And yes, that seeks a new relationship with the countryside and farming communities on that basis. And that has to be a relationship based on respect, on genuine partnership.
That was Keir Starmer speaking at the NFU's conference in Birmingham in 2023. Something I've been particularly struck by has been the reaction across social media, with influencers in particular whipping up as much support as the NFU and other established industry representative groups when it comes to APR. So today's episode is principally about shining a light on the London rally and MP meetings that took place last week on Tuesday the 19th of November. But I think it should all be held in the context of these wider movements that are going on, especially the general feeling of discontent and uncertainty. It was a cold, wet day, snowy for some, and I left the train station in Norwich not quite sure what to expect. But as we made our way down the line and more farmers got on the train, it became clear that hundreds, if not thousands of farmers would be making their voices heard that day. 1,800 heading to the NFU's MP meetings at Church House, and the rest heading to Richmond Terrace near Parliament Square. A few farmer reporters joined me in documenting our days, and I want to thank Rich Heddy, Bizza Walters and Ben Cooper in particular. We are just approaching London on the Norwich train. There's very much standing room only. A large contingent of farmers, it looks like, coming down from East Anglia. We'll see how we go. I'm already hearing reports from those who are close to Westminster that many of the roads are being closed. There is huge amounts of traffic going into the capital as well. Looks like it's going to be a busy day with farmers descending on the capital.
Meanwhile, Ben Cooper was about to leave the farm.
Good morning from a very wet and windy Wiltshire. Checked the cows around about 5:30 this morning, make sure everything was all right. They're all where they're meant to be, all fed, all good. Just about to leave the house to jump on the train. Yeah, excited and interested about how today's going to go. Looking forward to it and hopefully won't get too wet.
Hi, it's Richard Heady from North Bucks, and I've just jumped on my train on the way into London for the Farmers' Rally and Mass Lobby. Woke up to a dusting of snow over the place, which has slowed things up, and actually cancelled the train I was meant to jump on. So after a sprint to the station, I managed to jump on another train and hopefully get there in time for my first meeting. It's a job to know what to wear today, because I want to join the solidarity of farmers wearing our farmer gear, but actually I need to get into Westminster for my MP meeting, so I've had to dress slightly smarter in dealer boots rather than wellies. Right, I'll give you another update when I get into London.
Hello, I'm Visa Walters and I'm here with my dad Richard and our good friend Sam Jones. We are in the car, it is 7:45, on the way to Warwick Parkway to get the train down to London. The snow is falling down thick and fast, but hopefully it should clear. Rich, how are you feeling for today?
Me, well, I'm cold, I forgot my vest.
Okay, Sam, how are you feeling?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Good.
I'm actually seriously busy. It's a big day for us because, our future is basically in the hands of politicians at the moment, and we've got to do some convincing.
Well, I hope you've got your arguments ready, because I don't think it's going to be a quick turnaround.
Indeed. Anyway, but it's snowing here. It's there's a bit of I think they gritted the road. Well, they have gritted the road, which is good. The trains won't be delayed, but one or two farmers are probably going to struggle to get there on time, particularly the ones coming from up the north. But farmers are a resilient bunch, and I'm sure they will turn out in good numbers.
We're on the train, my brother, my father, and loads of other local farmers. It's almost like a little catch-up just without the pub being there. Just gone past Reading, making our way up to London. Charlie's already getting concerned that there's not enough trees and fields. He's getting a bit agitated. It's not right. It's not right. We'll get there. But hopefully make good time.
I'm here with Ed Hemming, who's a local dairy farmer from Warwickshire. He's here with his wife Emma and 2 young boys. Ed, how are you feeling for today?
Well, so far today it's looking good. There's loads of people at the train station, which is really positive. So we're all travelling down to London on the train. Hopefully when we get there we'll meet up with loads more people and be able to get our point across.
Right, I made it to the Big Smoke. I'm out in the sleet now, walking from Euston down to Westminster. So I know this should take about 40 minutes if I power walk it, and I prefer that walk than going in the tube. So I'm heading to the NFU reception so I can get some most up-to-date information which will help me lobby my MP. Right, better get cracking.
As Richard made his way to the NFU meet-up, I'd arrived at Westminster and was walking towards Richmond Terrace, where the rally was taking place. There were so many farmers there that you certainly couldn't move anywhere particularly quickly. As I made my way through the crowds, I took the opportunity to speak to a few farmers.
Yeah, so my name's Tom Everall, I'm a dairy farmer from Shropshire, and we're here today to try and get some changes to the latest budget.
And obviously with all the changes that have come up in the budget, how would you be impacted?
So I'm a 5th generation farmer where we are, and this will heavily affect me with the introduction of the inheritance tax, and with 2 sort of very elderly grandparents, potentially not lasting until the end of the decade. This could seriously affect how we'll be able to carry on and farm, because this 20% extra we will not be able to justify without selling some assets. So yeah, we're hoping that we're able to change something. Not against paying tax for the right reasons, but this is just going to break family farms like ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, the Labour government is saying that this is actually only going to affect a very small number of farms. Do you go along with that?
No, not at all. We're only really a small sort of dairy farm, around 120 cows, but the issue we have is that our assets, the land and the price of land around us, means that our 300 acres massively exceeds the million or so buffer, or whatever they're calling it. And so we will still be having to pay a massive tax on the inheritance of the farm.
And what would success look like today for you?
Them even thinking about changing it, because at the moment they've said they're not going back on it, but from what I've read, they haven't done enough research into how farms work, and they haven't consulted with DEFRA or any other advice, and I think they've just seen all of us farmers with this asset as the farm, but while the land holds value, we're not cash rich by any means. I mean, we're surviving from paycheck to paycheck at the moment, so it's tough.
Yeah, so my name's John Dale. We're beef farmers from down near Gatwick Airport in Surrey.
And why did you decide to come to the march today?
We feel really strongly that this tax is massively unfair. So we are 7th-generation farmers on our site, so next year it'll be 200 years. The jobs got tougher and tougher, particularly in the last 10 years anyway, and the amount of return you can make from farming, particularly without diversification, is very small. And this tax is going to absolutely screw us, because there is no money to hold back for tax reasons. My father's 82, so death duties was always something that we kind of relied upon for the farm to pass to either myself and my brother or our children. So at a stroke of a pen, it's either going to mean that we have to find over £500,000, or we're going to have to sell a chunk of the farm off to pay for it.
Yeah. In the situation where no changes are made after today, and this campaign, it's lots of people are telling me this is only really the start, but if nothing was to change, what impact would it have for the business?
For our business,
Finish it.
I don't think we'd have any choice except to sell off a chunk of the farm if it doesn't change. I cannot see any way around that. There's no way we could support on our income that we're getting remortgaging or mortgaging and paying that sort of money. It's just not feasible.
What message would you like to send to the Chancellor?
I think
it's a family show.
Yes. No, I'll keep those thoughts to myself. I think she's got to really look at her figures, because she's saying that it's only going to affect 73% of farms, and that is so untrue. I mean, I know prices of houses and ground are more expensive in the south, but you can't even buy an ex-council estate in our council house in our village for less than 600,000 to 700,000. So to say that most farms aren't worth the £1 million threshold is massively naive, and I'm just sick and tired of hearing her harping on about, well, we've got to pay for this because everything from the Conservatives has left us with a big black hole. They've promised the earth, and now they're trying to get money wherever they can.
Once we'd all gathered in Richmond Terrace, what followed was lots of speeches from the rally organisers, as well as a lot of other speakers, including Jeremy Clarkson, who, despite not being a family farmer, went down pretty well with the crowd. But while I stood watching the speeches, Bizza and Richard had made it to the NFU event to meet their MPs.
So I've been to the rally. There's a fantastic turnout, really busy there, loads of support. I ended up helping with the pedal tractors, which led the procession and then paraded around Parliament Square. So that was an honour and incredible to see the young kids turning out, and the press absolutely taking loads of pictures, because it really made the point that it's our children that are going to be affected. They're the ones who won't be able to carry on farming. So now I've made my way through to Parliament, and I'm in the big hall. This is where the Queen was laid to rest while everyone came to see her before she was finally buried. And this is where we've got our MP meeting. So now I'm waiting for Callum Anderson, our MP, to come out so we can have a chat with him.
1:30, just arrived at Church House on our way to meet the MP. Ours is a Lib Dem, so not sure if we'll get anything other than positivity out of her, because the opposition are all on our side, aren't they? But we will see how that one goes.
As Richard and Bizza went into Church House, I stood outside speaking to a few farmers and others in the queue about to meet with their MPs. Here is one of those conversations.
Hi, my name's Robin Munt, and we farm sheep on the Isle of Wight.
Hi, my name's George. I am part of a family farm on the Isle of Wight, and I'm also an accountant.
And we are standing, I am standing right now by a long queue of farmers and others who are about to go and speak to MPs as part of the NFU's contingent of today's events. Robin, your take on what do you expect to be happening inside?
So we're here today as part of the NFU's mass lobbying event. So we have secured a meeting with our MP, and we are just waiting to get through security to get across to him our concerns of how the budget changes that Labour are bringing through, or wanting to bring through, are going to affect us as farming individuals.
And George, you're an accountant in the sort of agricultural sphere, so what's the range of voices, range of opinions? What have people been asking you about in the last couple of weeks after the budget?
Yeah, certainly the phones haven't stopped ringing. I think it's just general worry, to be honest. It's not, people aren't putting figures to it. It's about succession, and it's about keeping the farm going. Lots of farmers are, pension age. They're still working. They're still on the farm, and they're worried about how they're going to pass it on. Formerly, it was best to give your farm on death. So now a lot of the ownership is kept in that generation, and it's really putting family farms at strain.
What are you going to be saying to your MP in there today?
I think it's just about humanising it, really. I think the conception of farmers, from Parliament and from generally cities, is that everyone's very wealthy and everyone has loads of money to spend, but it's just not the case. The return on land at the minute is just so small, and I think the changes they've put in are, we're really going to see a lot of farm sales and less food on our shelves as well.
Robin, the take from the Isle of Wight at the moment, you speak to a lot of farmers there, so what are people generally saying?
Well, I think as an industry we were already feeling pretty hard hit, combination of weather and markets and increases in input costs. The whole feeling amongst farmers is really low. They're really trying to understand, as George has said, about how they're going to work through how this affects them and their businesses. We've spent years working to a certain model, and now that's being undercut. And there's also, it's not just the APR issue. Also, the fast tracking of the reduction of BPS in the short term is a massive problem. People have done budgets, people have done cash flows on the basis of what we were expecting to be getting next year as part of the subsidy transition. You've sown crop on the basis of those cash flows and those input costs, and now that is being completely undercut in an industry where we can't make up the difference in those prices because it's commodity led. As an industry, we don't have control over our sale prices in the same way as others do. So trying to fill those gaps in your cash flow is a real worry and a real panic for people, and not knowing whether or not are we going to have another wet year, are we going to have another crisis in crops. So I think the mood amongst farmers generally is just really low, and it's a real worry how people are going to sort that out.
Now, from an NFU perspective and from many farmers' perspective, ultimate success would probably be for this whole thing to be completely rolled back. But assuming that doesn't happen, and if there could be just one amendment, what would that be?
Our big hope at the moment is to get government to the table to consult with us, because all they've demonstrated at the moment, when they're producing the figures that they are trying to stand behind, is that they are not representative of the reality of the industry. So we just need to get them at the table, and that's what the mass lobbying event is about today, is about putting farmers in front of their MPs to make that case, and to impress upon MPs the need to get Treasury to talk to the industry, not just the NFU but the industry in general, so that we can have a conversation to understand what they're trying to achieve and how they can understand how this affects us, and see where we go from there.
George, a consultation would be the best way?
Yeah, I think 100%. It's not just the anger at the policy, it's the anger that no one's been talked to. We don't want to get political today, but there was an election quite a short amount of time ago and manifestos were given and there was no word of this in there. Us as accountants, we like to think we have an idea pre-budget of sort of vaguely what's going to happen. We didn't know either. I just think there needs to be a step back, talk to some people and come to a better solution, really, or at least a different solution.
Robin and George from the Isle of Wight. As they went into Church House to meet their MP, Bizza and Richard were coming out from their meetings.
Time is 3 o'clock. We've just lobbied our MP. She's Lib Dem and really did have to listen to everything we said. She wants to meet with us before Christmas to hear opinions in a less, I think, crowded and emotional space. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion flying around today, and we can then get letters written to various people. She's really, really behind us, which is great.
Hi, so I've just come out of a meeting with our new Labour MP, and I think we've got across the emotional side of the argument very well. The issue is that he can't go back to his Labour government and tell them to change anything without hard financial evidence. So I've got some head scratching to do to find out how we can anonymously collect farm data from lots of farms in his constituency, just to prove to him that it doesn't just affect the few biggest farms, it's going to affect a massive amount of farms. It's been a very emotional day, not only seeing the children in their pedal tractors going around Parliament Square, but also hearing stories from people whose grandparents own the farm in their late 80s, and now they almost have a date in which they have to die by to save their family millions of pounds of inheritance tax. So there's a real worry out there. There's going to be a lot of people taking their own lives to try and save their family a lot of debt, which is very worrying. Right, I'm just heading for the train now to get back to the countryside where I belong. Thanks for listening. Cheers.
So overall, a big day for the farming community and in the developing story of the farmer reaction to the budget. As I said at the beginning of this episode, I don't expect this to be the last time we dig into this issue, and there is a lot more to reflect on, politically and economically, but also culturally. It's not an easy subject, and tensions have quite understandably been high, but as we move towards a new framework for farming inheritance, what will the impact really be? On size of farms, on the rural economy, but also on rural communities and even farming culture? The answers will present themselves in time, and there are certainly some of the questions that we'll be tackling on the podcast in future. That's it for today. Huge thanks to everyone who had a hand in helping produce this episode, including our farmers, of course, Bizza Walters, Richard Heddy and Ben Cooper. Meet the Farmers is brought to you by RuralPod Media, the only podcast production agency to specialise in the rural sector. We're on a mission to make rural stories mainstream and help businesses, organisations and communities like you tell your story through podcasting. Podcasting is a fantastic way of connecting with your audience, whoever that might be, getting your message out there and networking with leaders in your niche. RuralPod Media can help you by launching your new podcast or helping you with the technical side. We also provide podcast training and an audit service if you already have a podcast. You're not sure where to take it to next. For more information or to book a call, visit ruralpodmedia.co.uk. That's ruralpodmedia.co.uk.